we should be good. All right, so week 4, obviously a short week. Looking at exercise 4. Completely switching gears. As I was mentioning, obviously we just went from something pretty abstract, pretty free form, not a lot of wrong or right answers there, to something that definitely has more or less a right answer, right? Either the stairs work or they don't, right? I mean, have you ever walked across the stair and you're like, whoa, that one was messed up? And it can really change the way you perceive a building, right? I mean, don't get me wrong, the whole building could be made out of gold, but if the stairs and ramps are broken or you can't even get to these spots, it's really unuseful architecture, to say the least. However, definitely important, and you'll never have to analog draw stairs again. I will successfully say that. But we are switching the gears to something much more practical, such as stairs, rails, and I should add ramps in there as well. The next operation of our observation tower will require refinement and diagramming as we continue. However, before we just start putting things into a cohesive object, let's focus only on the vertical circulation. So basically one thing at a time. Stairs, ramps, and rails all have very different way of being made depending on the forms that are chosen, especially in comparison to hand drafting. For this project, we will be using a simple 6x12 steps and a 1 to 12 inch ratio for any ramps that you may choose. Landings, of course, are at a minimum of their width. So if you use a width of 3 feet, how minimum should your landing be? At least 3 feet. To be fair, you can go larger than that, but it needs to at least be 3 feet. And we will assume that the material is steel or concrete. Let's not get too fancy. Let's not go Apple stairs, unless you've maybe done this before and you want to maybe try a take 2. You guys know what I mean when I say Apple stairs? The Apple Store in New York? The first glass stair ever that cost $1.6 million. It's a pretty good stair. But as you can see, I can be kind of geeky about stairs and ramps and rails and circulation because I deal with that all the time. And it gets actually quite detailed, and there's a lot of money actually in patenting certain systems to make those things work. Anyway, however, some very vague instructions, as always, because again, I want you to find out what it takes to make it yours, right? Obviously, first step, make sure abstraction is saved. Perhaps hide it in the exact same file. That's a good step because eventually we're going to put these together. However, I do want you to make them separately first. It's a lot easier, and trust me, when all that stuff is in the way, all those things that could accidentally snap to, you definitely want it to be disappeared. So I would definitely suggest that you hide your previous assignment or just move it somewhere else where it's out of the way. Step 1, check, right? Step 2, start with using your top, front, and side views to create the necessary profiles. Wow, I couldn't get any more vague than that. But we do know some things about our project. For instance, that it's a 30 by 30, and we have a limit up to 50 feet. So I do want to match that, and there's a good reason I do, right? Because I will be putting these together. So let's go ahead and start with a new layer. I'm going to go with stairs or bounding box, right? Again, something that just keeps me organized, and I have a lot of layers available, so double click on that layer to enact it, rectangle, and we'll go with a 30 feet by 30 feet. Sweet. We'll take that same piece, we'll zoom in on it a little bit, get refocused, and go ahead and make another. I mean, you can make the full box, but I don't know, sometimes I just rotate it because it's just a little easier. I mean, why switch to a whole nother view? One thing I was showing a student yesterday is that you can rotate through any point. Some of these things are kind of like a given. You'll notice that you can't necessarily rotate in certain areas. However, another thing that I want to suggest is that you can move this gumball as well. So if you actually get that really tiny center button and right click on it, right there, oh, not right click, regular click, you can actually move your gumball. So for instance, relocate gumball, and it's kind of neat. You can tell it to actually get to a certain point. So in my case, I want to make sure that my endpoint is checked. I can select that point, and select that point, and it'll actually change my gumball for me. Don't get me wrong, if that is absolutely insane to you, right? And of course, turn your filter off or it'll go crazy. But if, don't get me wrong, now it actually looks correct. But if you wanted to reset it again, reset gumball, and that'll reset right back to the center. Very helpful tool, especially when you get some really complex objects. And again, maybe not as useful in 1, 2, or 3 yet, but as we continue, they may get there. But this is essentially the bounding box that we want to stay in. And that's really kind of the only thing I'm suggesting. Now, my B team, right, if you haven't taken D1 or D2, let's just make something simple. It goes up in kind of a spiral-like way, right? And let's make actually the simplest stair we can in order to achieve that. Now, I think the best way to actually draw it is in one of the actual side views or the elevation view. In my case, you may want to actually draw it first on the ground. So in my case, it's somewhere over here. Let's put it in the right spot. As you can see, my C-plane is in a different area on my top view, so I can type in C-plane, and I can relocate it as well, right? So again, those are all separate, by the way. This C-plane doesn't really exist, and to be fair, I don't even know what C actually stands for. I think it's control plane. Usually C actually does stand for control. I didn't know that, but anyway, I learn something new every day as well. But yeah, just a couple of things we can change. And again, that C-plane controls where I draw something too. So if I needed to draw in a certain spot or a certain plane on my drawing, I can move that C-plane to the exact spot. Anyway, just food for thought. Let's draw some profiles. So, I mean, one of the easiest things to use is, of course, just a regular polyline. You can also just type in polyline. And typically what I do is draw it off to the side, or I draw in all 4 views simultaneously. Now that's something that you kind of just have to practice a little bit and get yourself oriented with, right? So for instance, picking kind of a certain direction that you want to look at. Today I'm going to start off with a 3x3 square landing, and I'm going to go up some steps, and then I'm going to have another landing. In fact, we could calculate it first. So for instance, I can draw a rectangle. I can go, well, I want to do a 3 feet by 3 feet. Awesome. And I want to do some really simple landings, so I'm going to go ahead and copy that and essentially make myself a little floor plan, right? I don't have to work harder, I can work smarter and just mirror that, use my midpoint, and get that to the other side. So essentially what I would like to do, and it looks like I may have drawn one way up in the sky, right? And again, it just accidentally clicked to those points. Not a big deal. I can move them and put them in the right spot. But more or less, this is going to start off as my landing, then I'm going to go up some steps, and I should hit another landing. I mean, don't get me wrong, I could calculate that all right now, but I don't necessarily have to. So I'm going to go ahead and make that a little bit easier for us to see, and make a stair layer. Let's call it stairs. We'll make them red today, Texas Tech red. And we'll go ahead and start making some stairs. I'm going to go ahead and use my polyline. And as you can see, I typically like to choose the right point that I want to go to, and then I'll choose another view. For instance, if I hold shift, I can now make it go up. If I hold shift in perspective, it doesn't necessarily always get the right direction, and very often you can think it's the right direction, but is actually maybe going in another direction. So again, being able to use these views simultaneously before I click is really nice, because, well, it finds the point in each viewport. However, I'm going to type in 6 inches because that's my riser. Enter, and I'm going to go across 12 inches, right? In my case, I'd want to double check that I was in the right elevation, because if I go 12 inches this way, it's not exactly the profile that I want to draw. That looks more like maybe just the face of the riser that I want to draw. However, before I do that, let's change my layer and try again, polyline, and go ahead and click that. So click, 6 inches, enter. I'm going to go to my other view, right? I can hold shift or hold shift here. 12 inches, enter, hold shift, click. And that's actually, funny enough, all I really need, right? Because I only need one, because, well, why work harder when I can just copy something, select the exact point that I need, and just go to town. I know, I wish I had this in my drafting, right? I could just copy stuff. But essentially I want to copy all of these until I get enough stairs. Now don't get me wrong, I don't have to do that all day either. In fact, I can even join them and copy that one instead. And we can go on forever. Obviously I'm going a little bit outside my piece, so I could take each one even at a time and dial it back a little bit. I could also further explode them, just in case, I went a little too far. And take them off as necessary. Now I've lined up with that piece, and it's going to line up essentially pretty well. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off real quick so I can join that very easily and turn it back on. Again, there's a reason why we use layers, and it's definitely to save you time. But that's looking pretty good for at least the top of my surface. What about the bottom? Well, we can zoom in a little bit, and we can go ahead and make that piece, right? So one of the rules that we know is we need some thickness to our stairs, and like the instructions said, we're going to assume that it's either steel or concrete. So I'm not going to actually use this line, but I do want to offset it about 6 inches. So offset, enter, and we'll go with 6 inches. That's looking pretty good. Obviously don't want that line, and more or less you can kind of see that it's more like a section cut, right? As if we were drawing the profile of those stairs, right? Looking pretty good. It's a bit open, right? Obviously that's not going to work, so I may need to take this point and at least cross it. That way I can trim it. Pretty sweet. I do want a closed box. And last but not least, we can fake it till we make it. Draw another line. Again, I want to hold shift and kind of just extend it. That way I can make sure that it actually got there. Extend and extend that one. I can take both of those lines, even though I can't see it, and trim it. That one. Sweet. So I'll take all those, join them, and let's say, I think I've gone over this before, but closed curve, be careful, right? Especially when you're copying all those stairs, very often you'll accidentally get one that's not actually connected. And you'll see that, especially in this next step when you extrude something, or you may have noticed when you extruded something in exercise 3, right? You're like, wait a minute, I thought it was a closed box or closed shape, and it wasn't, right? And it definitely wouldn't cap, it definitely wouldn't close, right? And that's, of course, the reason. Because it's open. In fact, if you didn't know or not, you could also click on something still, type in what, and it is going to tell you whether it's closed or open. In our case, it's a valid curve, a closed polyline with 51 points. Man, I didn't have to count any of that, right? So all the information is actually stored within the object itself, but just in case. So from there, pretty simple. I'm going to go ahead and extrude it exactly 3 feet. Extrude. You'll notice there's a couple of options. You can actually make something solid to begin with in this step. You'll notice on the Mac it's definitely to the left, whereas on Windows it's like inside in sort of kind of these tiny little links, right? Especially if you're on Windows. So just keep in mind the same options are there, both Mac and Windows, but they're in 2 different spots, right? In my case, I'm just going to go to the other side, click, just because I already drew that, and bam, I got some stairs. Let's check them out. Oh man, they're open. I accidentally didn't choose close. However, I can of course click on it, cap it, and suddenly we've got some stairs. I don't know about you, but if I didn't talk so much, we could have done that in like not even a minute, right? And that is already such a time saver. However, next, there's a couple more things we can do. I'm not going to do that in that mode. But from here, we essentially know that it basically hits this step, and that we'll need another step on top. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, I could take this one, I could even make a copy of it, and put it up there. Right? Not too shabby. I could further extrude it. Nope. Extrude curve. I could close it, make it solid, and of course continue the same step, or even just kind of fake it till I make it and end it there. To be fair, let's do it the correct way. And you may run into this as well, so I want to show you what to do. But obviously that doesn't work. And in many cases in the digital realm, we can make stuff that doesn't work, right? I mean, you can make stuff that floats and all kinds of things. But what would we necessarily do for that piece? To be fair, there's a couple of options. I could really just extend the piece, make it larger, or double it up. So I mean, there's kind of option 1. Because, well, once I render it, you're not going to see quite nearly everything, but I don't know about you, I'm kind of a perfectionist. I hate when there's like a little thing off, or especially if that was concrete or this line. Don't get me wrong, at this far back, nobody in the world is ever going to know, but you will know, and sometimes that's enough. So maybe that's not the best option, but it is a quick option, especially if I was just in schematic design. I was just kind of putting stuff together real quick, or maybe I had 5 models to go. So I would definitely not waste my time on little things like that. But the next thing that I could do is extrude a face. So I could take this face just like I would in, say, SketchUp, right? So I can extrude face or surface. So I can take that surface, enter, and extend it along to a certain point, just like I would in SketchUp or anything like that. Or I could take really any face and extend it. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, sometimes this is like actually kind of cool for like modeling. If you've ever had SketchUp or anything like that, you're pretty used to kind of the push and pull stuff. Even Blender's pretty cool about that. But what's nice is, at least in a NURB object, it makes another object for us, which is sometimes nice, sometimes not so much nice. But I think better to have them separate, because I can always put them together. It's a lot harder to separate stuff, if you will, wire cutting all the time and things like that. But we have solved some things. So if we go back to that rendered mode, it definitely looks a little bit better, right? And of course, if I put those actually together, it actually looks pretty nice. From there, I make some more stairs? Nah. We've already got some stairs, and we've already got them pre-calculated, so why not just take that piece and copy it? I'm going to take it from a certain point that I know. In my case, maybe this one. And I'm going to put it in a certain spot. I'm going to lock it into there, and I'm going to rotate it. Rotate. I'm in the right plane, so I can rotate that pretty well. I'm going to lock it into a point. That way I know it's perfect. And voila, I have more stairs. Oh no, I don't have enough. Or it doesn't look like it, right? I could double check from the top view. Oh man, missing a stair. So it's okay. Obviously, there's that one stair I'm missing. So let's move it to the right spot. Sometimes I do this on, like, I mess up on purpose, guys, because I want you to kind of run into the same things. Like, man, what do I do for that? What the heck? I can't just push and pull. That's going to look kind of funny. Let's see. So I can extrude surface. I can take that one and that one at the same time. I don't know about you, but that's kind of ugly, kind of Minecrafty. Let's see what it looks like rendered. There is a key command for rendered. So if you do Command Shift R, or sorry, Control Shift R, I misspoke. I don't know my keys. Any second now. See, that's too much work. But there is a key command for it. Fortunately, you can't press it again and it goes back, which is kind of my gripe about it. But, you know, that's fair. If you wanted to do something a little better, right? I think another thing that you could do is simply just draw a profile. So again, I can take that polyline, find my points, make sure that I find the exact right points, and close that curve and go ahead and extrude it. I'm going to make sure it's closed, yep, and get it to the other side. So, I mean, there's definitely a few modeling ways that we can do, right? We can just kind of fake it, but one thing that you don't want to do is just have something that is very unrealistic like that, right? Especially even in Studio. So that's already looking pretty good. Kind of wonky. What if I wanted it to be kind of the same or straight? Well, again, I could change it. I take that exact point and maybe move it up, right? Maybe somewhere that is actually aligned with that, or I could even extend the line or what have you. Well, let's check that out, see how it looks. So don't get me wrong, I mean, if you've ever used SketchUp or Blender, none of this is new, right? But it's just kind of the different way that it works in Rhinoceros. To be fair, it's kind of my preference. I like this because to me there's a lot more control in the points and the edges and all those things, where good luck, like, you know, just extruding something at 3 feet in some of these programs. But that's looking pretty good. Let's continue now that I've got the right step. But I don't want to do all that over again. Right, so I'm just going to take what I have, right? Maybe change up the spices. Obviously, I'm helping the guys out who maybe, you know, they've never touched stairs before. So of course, let's do the easy thing first, and basically continue that. So I don't really want to do that all over again. So I need that guy. Let's go ahead and join those, or Boolean union them. Sweet. Now it looks like one box. What's great about that is, well, it looks like once I Boolean union something, it really gets rid of those lines as well, right? No more lines, right? Because they're no longer two separate boxes. Oh, I forgot, you can't edit, undo a view also. Some things are not commands. But let's say that line was bothering me too. Again, I can Boolean union them. Sweet. You can still kind of see the line, can't you? But I'm pretty sure once you render, yeah, it's, oh, that's the profile line. That's not actually the, sweet. So yeah, I mean, you can get it pretty crystal clear and pretty nice, right, to say the least. However, I'm not going to put everything together yet because I do want to copy it. So I'm going to take that whole piece, copy. I'm going to take a point that I know, right? So again, don't just take like a random point here because we need this to be in an exact spot. So I'm going to take that point and of course put it in a relatively simple spot. In my case, I actually do need the other piece though, right? So, I mean, a landing's not exactly hard to make, so I'm going to go ahead and put that there for now. Rotate. Take a known, right? You guys may notice that I'm only taking certain spots that like I know are going to kind of continue that 90-degree angle, and really using the object itself to really govern where I put it. So again, taking certain pieces to make sure they line up. And that's a pretty easy fix, right? Obviously just extrude, surface, enter, take that one, and go across. Same kind of things. Again, I can put those together, Boolean union, and nobody would have to know, right? Probably did that a little wrong, but I kind of want to show you different things and different methods anyway. So that one's looking a little more of alignment. Nice. But let's finish it. Extrude. Go to the other side. Sweet. Put it all together. Boolean union. So I mean, there's already two different ways that we can put those stairs together. To be fair, some look better than the others, but relatively simple, right, to say the least. I can continue that again. Let's take the whole thing, copy. I definitely don't have to sit there and make every little stair. In fact, I'll take the whole piece, again, put it in the right spot, rotate. In my case, I guess I could mirror that as well. I'm going to hold shift so I know it's exactly 180 degrees. And reposition myself to move it. I think we overdid it a little bit, so I may need to even wire cut it. Good thing I have that bounding box. I'm going to go straight across. Oh, maybe it doesn't hit. Oh, it's touching it. So it's not going to wire cut if it's touching. It's okay. I can move it out just a little bit, then wire cut it. Wire cut. Oh, gotta spell wire cut correctly. Oh. We'll go not the wrong way. We'll go the right way. Yep, did something. And there you go. Not too shabby. You can still wire cut stuff, which is really nice, because you can't do that really in Revit or any other architecture program. But already right there, this is what I'm kind of looking at for at least my B team, right? Very simple and even effective in Studio or something like that. That being said, I could easily make my drawings from that as well. I could make 2D. Enter. I'm not going to use hidden lines because that would be insane. And voila, how my student in G2 is cheating, right? Because, well, he's taking that exact Make 2D. He knows how to model it really well. He prints it out and he can make his model or he can make his drawing. So again, that already right there should be a huge game changer for the accuracy of your model making alone, right? Is of course being able to just kind of print the objects that we make in this program, right? So already a game changer. But for what I'm looking for in exercise 4 in terms of modeling, this is the minimum, right? So let's go over a couple of more options, especially if we want to do something a little outside the box. I'm going to go ahead and make another one essentially. So let's get rid of that. And let's go ahead and make a copy because I don't want to do that all over again. And we'll basically move this one out to space. All right. So let's try again. A couple different things. That's pretty good. But the other one's in the way. Get out of here. So maybe we want something more like a floating stair, or I don't know, maybe actually something a little bit more detailed and has maybe some more changes and alterations to it, to say the least. So, I mean, that's a pretty simple profile. So maybe let's do something a little bit more complex. Obviously looking at my D4, D3 guys. Let's move that back into place and make sure we're on our stairs. Sweet. So let's draw something else, right? Let's go ahead and use, again, still my polyline. And I'm still gonna do essentially the same things. But in my case, I'm gonna maybe go up, I don't know, 5 inches. Shift. And then maybe I'm gonna give it like a toe kick. So maybe 1 inch. Oh. 1 inch. Let's try again. It gets confused. Especially if I'm in the wrong view. I didn't rotate it. No, I didn't. Okay. 6 inches, enter. 1 inch, enter. Oh, actually, I wanted to do 5 inches. 5 inches, enter. 1 inch, enter. Another 1 inch, enter. And, well, if I added an inch, I need to go 7 inches. 7 inches. Oh, wait. 13 inches. Sweet. I don't have to do all that again, so I'm just going to copy it. Again, take that piece. I don't know, maybe I'm just going to go up like 7 or 8 steps. Kind of want to change it up for my advanced guys. But that's looking pretty sweet. Pretty detailed, to say the least. That would definitely be a more interesting profile, a little bit even more correct. But I could still further update some things. So if I do still function F10, I can control my points. So I mean, I could really kind of get like, I mean, we're talking like the detail, the stuff that you would actually do at a firm, like really dialing in exactly what something should look like, especially for a rendering or even construction drawing. So don't get me wrong, you can change these up a lot. So I mean, there's already idea number 2, right? And one of my favorite ideas, well, let's do this profile first because, well, we're going to make some more. So let's finish that profile. So again, close it however you like. I'm going to kind of just fake it till I make it for today. But see, it's going right to my C plane. Not a big deal. See how it's like going right to that green line? I could move it. I could go to this front view and I could type in C plane. And be like, nah, bro, go over here. Right? That way, when I do draw, it will essentially line up to that. I may have to do that again to here, though. And I may have to do it again to there. But what's really nice is I can reset my 0. Now, the only thing that's not nice is it doesn't like update it all at once, and that can be really confusing. So keep in mind where your C plane is, especially when you're drawing. But not a big deal. Let's go ahead and finish it. And hopefully when I draw my polyline now, it'll just actually be within the same plane. Ah, man, it's still getting caught up. That's okay. Let's turn some of these off. Oh, it's because I had near on. Very dangerous. Never have near on. Because it'll just try to attach to anything. And that is not exactly useful. And as you can see, let's see what it produces. It looks fine in this view. Alright, to say the least. Uh-oh. That's whack. However, let's say I spent like an hour drawing something. What do I do if I don't want to necessarily do that again? I could take this view and I can make 2D. And voila, there it is, flat. So I can't tell you how many times and how many hours I've spent drawing stuff over and over again, and it's because I messed it up so badly, right? And I didn't realize I can even use the tools that I've already established in this program to, of course, make it work. Of course, I'm going to join that, and I'm just going to use it, right? Kind of messed up that one on purpose, just so that you would know what to do, right, in the right situation. So basically, just We'll put it on the other side, get rid of that one. That one's all janky and messed up anyway. I'll get rid of those. And we'll go ahead and extrude that one. So already right there, a pretty interesting stair, right, to say the least. Definitely a little bit more detailed, right? It's even got maybe even some of the shadow lines in there. Not so much. Doesn't get the preview of that so well. But that's looking pretty good, right? I could even start to maybe change the face color, make them wood versus others. But that's maybe option 2. Let's try a floating stair with a stringer, which I would say maybe is the most advanced option. However, from here, let's maybe continue the design. Because after all, if you're not in D1, I'm going to be looking for some, I mean, don't go crazy. Let's not make like super DNA spiral stairs and, you know, make them unbelievable to where they can't even be used. I would say try to stay orthogonal. If you wanted to add a diagonal in there, I think that would be okay. But just keep in mind, especially if you've taken graphics too, how hard it can be to calculate those stairs and those steps and those ladders. Let's try not to use ladders, by the way. Try to stick to just stairs and ramps. However, let's go ahead and do some of those. So again, just extrude face. Or, sorry, I keep saying extrude face because that's what it is in SketchUp. It's extrude surface. But let's say, I don't know, I want to come out to this point. Maybe I want a ramp. Maybe I'm going to have a ramp because I accidentally rotated my piece a little bit. I don't know if you guys can tell, but that's definitely not flat. That's okay. I kind of messed up my project. But I think it was because I put my profile slightly off. And that's okay. Maybe I want to fix it. I totally can. Maybe it's a happy little accident, as Bob Ross would say. But I could take that piece, and I could fake it till I make it a little bit, so that when I do extrude that face, I make sure that it comes back down a little bit. Oh, extrude face. God, I keep saying that, surface. But instead of going maybe straight, oh wait, it's gonna lock in straight no matter what. Yeah, never mind. Extrude always makes it straight. You could fake it though by essentially F10. If it'll even give me the points. Maybe it won't. All right, we can't fake it. Learn something new every day. Well, let's get it right then. Ah, there's a culprit. So clearly, this point needs to come down. Boop. And fake it till you make it, right? Don't worry, I'm not going to zoom on anybody's models, right? However, you will always know that it's wrong, right? However, for the sake of the tutorial, let's keep going. But just in case you wanted to, you know, quick fix, you don't have time, you're pressed for time and things like that. But yeah, pretty easy fix. Extrude surface. Hang in there, guys. I know this one's kind of long and technical, but man, it's actually the face that's wrong. That's okay. Again, we can fix it. Line. In my case, I just need to make sure that this is a straight line, and there you go. It's ever so slightly off, and I'm getting that angle. So I'm not gonna like trim and do all that. I just want to line that back up and try again. Again, not a huge deal. As you can see, it's a pretty easy fix, and if you don't talk as much as I do, it's pretty quick. And there we go, fixed it. Sweet. But now that we've actually fixed that, I did want to show you that, of course, we can manipulate it still. Like say if we wanted to make it a ramp or go back to this landing. Let's actually make it to that landing. A bit much going on there. So we can still line up to things below us or above us pretty nicely. But let's say I did want to make that into a ramp, into a, I mean, it's not a real situation because, well, obviously I have stairs first, then a ramp. The wheelchair person, poor guy, is gonna have to go up the stairs just to like go up the ramp. So this is not for like an ADA situation, but it's more to play with actually the vertical circulation of something. And eventually we're gonna put these together. So again, try not to design them together. That's actually kind of the whole point. But let's go ahead and manipulate that. So we can go F10. Usually, maybe I gotta put them together first. Point union. F10. No, I am holding the right button. Let's try it. Oh, I know why. Disable. Let me just get a face. Surface, polysurface. Those are the ones I need. Doesn't want me to. Oh, sub objects? No. There we go. So we'll take that object, and if we move it, it won't let it. There we go. But as you can see, you can actually just make a ramp based on just moving the face itself. Now you'll notice it moved the entire piece of the object. It also kept some of the surfaces plumb and things like that. Also, if you're getting all kind of that, that's because I had the sub objects on. But yeah, you can further manipulate some of those objects, and nicely enough, we can still extrude from there. So extrude surface, that one, and we'll come at a certain distance. Now I did mention we could change up the stairs. Obviously there was kind of take two, if you will, different kind of profile. Another one that I like is basically a little bit more modern, like a stringer, right? And things like that. However, we still have to draw that profile, so I'm just going to go ahead and draw it here in a different view. So in my case, I know that they're actually going to be rectangles, but I want to draw the stringer first so I know where to kind of put those rectangles. So again, kind of the exact same thing that I just drew. In fact, I could probably just take that one if I have my original. I think I put it over here. There we go. Why work harder when we can work smarter? I'll just use that for my stringer. Put that over there, rotate it, RO for short, hold shift, and make sure it's locked in. I got my grid snap on. I didn't want to actually click that, but if you ever notice your mouse is constricted, usually it's because you accidentally turned on grid snap. There is a command for it that I seem to always push, so just in case you were wondering, why is it stuck to a grid? But a stringer is actually really short. We're gonna go with maybe, I don't know, 6 inches. So extrude. And let's go with, again, something just kind of small, structural, and maybe in the middle of our piece. So we're going to basically assume that that's kind of the structure holding up our floating stairs, if you will. No longer need that. And let's go ahead and maybe continue these, right? Well, let's see if that even works. If I extrude face, God, I keep saying that. Extrude surface, my bad. It's going to get that whole thing, and that's definitely not what we want, right? I mean, obviously, if I wanted that, I would have just continued. So in my case, maybe I actually just need to make a new rectangle, or just make a box, right? So if I even just type in box, and we start off with something pretty simple. In my case, it's not going to magically go to my other profile, and there's not really an option to change the X, Y, or Z directions here. So I'll have to go to a different viewport and basically essentially find the right one. And I did. There we go. In fact, I already have my drawing, so it's already right there. I went ahead and made a box, right? And then can, of course, manipulate that box or change its dimensions or anything like that. That's looking pretty good for a piece of wood. Not too shabby, and I can just kind of fake it till I make it. However, if I wanted to be a little bit more precise about it, I'd probably use a profile or stringer without my profile in it, but to save time for the tutorial, it works. However, I do want an exact dimension, so I'm going to go ahead and move my object real quick and dial it in exactly. In fact, I was showing this to a student earlier, but you can scale things in one direction. So if you type in scale 1D as one dimension, I can say, well, I just want this dimension from here to here and extend it, right? So that's pretty nice, not gonna lie. But if I wanted to make sure that that was kind of floating on top and didn't kind of get in the way there, fake it till I make it. It's looking pretty sweet. However, if I wanted that kind of exact configuration, if you will, and to be fair, my stringer's not exactly working yet. I'm kind of missing a piece, but let's continue. I'm gonna go ahead and copy from that exact position. So in my case, I may even want to go from the next stair up just because I know I have something continuing. So here's kind of a tip and trick. You don't always have to choose a right spot, just one that you know that is repeating. Does that make sense, guys? Because honestly, it took me a couple of years to realize, oh my gosh, everything is oddly connected. But my goodness, what a detailed stair. Check it out. Yeah, I like the shadows on it. Game changing, right? Especially if I was modeling something for studio and everything like that. However, let's keep going, right? For the sake of tutorial. I know I have about 9 minutes left and like tons more things to talk about, but maybe I should talk about Rails. But yeah, let's maybe end it on Rails. I did want to show you Grasshopper and projection. Maybe we ended on that. I don't know. I talk too much, but let's continue. Because that's looking pretty sweet. And to be fair, I guess I could just put another box. I could start it here, I could start it there. I could just stick with the 3x3 landings. I mean, nothing wrong with that either. I'm gonna go ahead and extrude curve. And I don't know, go with 12 inches for now. As you know, we can manipulate these things so much that sometimes you just have to give yourself kind of a base to start with, right? And that's looking pretty good. Not too bad. Definitely nice there. A little, definitely realistic, appropriate. Whereas in not realistic, not appropriate. However, I can fake it till I make it and just extrude that face. Surface, and it's gonna take me forever. And we'll take that down. Fake it till we make it, right? I'm not lining to any point, so I need to make sure. Oh, there we go. Sweet. And let's check that out. Nice. So already pretty formidable, right? And to be fair, very customizable. If you were trying to do that honestly in Revit, wouldn't even let you, right? Unless you really knew Revit and you could essentially make a custom part. But there's a reason why we use Rhinoceros in studios, because you can do whatever, right? You can literally do stuff that's not even possible. So again, the world is your oyster. But I'm not gonna go all the way to the top for this option. However, as you can see, we can clearly copy, we can clearly make new profiles, and we can go in all sorts of different directions. In fact, for this assignment, I want you to kind of go in different directions. So like extrude surface, got it right this time. Let's see some different things. Let's go up, let's go across, let's go up again, let's go, I mean, I want to see actually how far you can take it. I mean, especially if you've already taken this graphics too with Bogoslav or somebody else, Balderas, who definitely have like a stair project. Now's your chance, right, to do the things that you maybe were kind of scared to do in an analog world, right? Because let's face it, you mess up in the analog world, crap, I gotta redo all of this, right? I gotta erase it, I gotta get a new piece of paper, it's gonna cost me. And you definitely have that kind of sensibility. However, now you can do whatever you want. You can make a whole nother copy, be like, I didn't like that. Just copy from where I left off and delete the pieces I don't want, right? I can make, again, another copy. I can have 12 of them and go, look at all this work I did in 2 hours compared to what I did in analog. But that being said, I do want you to, mix and match. I mean, you can go this way, this way, go up another stair, go this way, go that way, make another ramp. Let's, get creative with it. But again, no spiral stairs, no ladders, things like that. We'll get to that actually in Revit, and it produces them really easily. So, however, a spiral stair in Rhino, you really have to calculate every single thing first and then copy it. So, I mean, there is a little bit of math involved. But let's say I was finished with my stairs, I got it all the way to 50 feet, and I was ready to make some rails. Well, good news, it's pretty easy. I'm going to take my polyline. I'm going to start up my first step. In my case, that way I can match that angle. I really could click on every single step, but since I know they're congruent, I'm just going to go right to the top. And essentially just kind of trace the top edge, if you will, of my lines. So in my case, I'm going to have a bump up there. That's okay. You've probably seen that before in a typical handrail. But I'm essentially just kind of following that line all the way up. And in my case, we're going to end it right here, so it'll kind of look funny. But in my case, I can make it all one piece, which is important, especially if I'm trying to save time in studio. I've got an hour left to go. They're about to pin up for review. We all know what it's like to be pressed for time. But that's looking pretty good. I know that a handrail is essentially 36 inches from the stair, so I'm just going to move it 36 inches. I'm going to make sure it's straight. Sweet. Already looking like a wireframe handrail, to say the least. What do you guys think? Pipe it? Sweep it? Sounds like a Daft Punk song, like move, erase it. Anyway. We can do actually a couple things here. Both are actually correct. I could pipe it, especially the easiest way. Pipe. I can go with, usually handrail's about 2 inches in diameter. That's a radius, so I'm gonna go with 1 inch, enter, in radius, 1 inch again, because I don't want my rail to be funny looking. Sweet, just like that, got some handrails. I know it's a game changer. Again, so much faster than literally analog drafting. Some of you guys are gonna get to analog drafting and be like, well, why am I doing this, right? I already know how to do this in the computer. But again, you know, especially if you're in my graphic studios, I let you play with the tools, right? But you do have to use them well. What is that? Right, so I have a student in my G2. He's already very good at computer graphics. He took a little too early. So he went ahead and made the whole model, made 2D, printed it out, and then made sure that it was correct for analog drafting. Don't get me wrong, it took him a little while to get the print correct, but you know, if you want to use a tool, you can use a tool, absolutely. I think. Now, some professors are not that way. They'll say, like, get off the computer before I hurt you, right? They won't actually hurt you. Anyway. But let's say, you know, obviously I got the rail portion, and, you know, I like to check some things because, like, bump outs like that sometimes, like, break and things like that, but it's really going to match all that piping and stuff. Again, another way that I could do it, if I wanted to go more, I don't know, Louis Kahn. If you guys have ever gone to, like, the Kimball, you know that Louis Kahn has a very special handrail, and usually it actually conforms to, like, say, your hand. So I'm going to do kind of like this little C. Man, I could really get fancy with the spices, right? I don't know. I wanted to hurt them a little bit. I'm just kidding, right? But let's say I wanted to use that profile. I could. So essentially put it in the same spot like I would as if it was a sweep. So again, perpendicular to the normal of that piece. So don't get me wrong, I'm kind of faking it till I make it there. I really should just take the piece itself. Ooh. And lock it on there in some way and then move it, right? I mean, that's really the easiest thing to do. But again, sweep. This one's gonna be wild. I don't even know if it'll work. Rail, profile, enter, direction, sweet. So can I have really cool handrails? Hell yeah, you can. And you can have it in the time of seconds rather than days. Imagine drafting that, guys. Or making 2D this now. Now I've done all the modeling. Now when I make 2D, it's already ready to go, right? And it has all those wonderful details that I already put in my object. Sorry, I do that a lot too. Last thing, I need some ballisters, right? Or rails. Usually the vertical rails are called ballisters. I don't know why. Ballaster? I have no idea. But 2 ways I can do it. I could just make some points and obviously make a pipe. So P-I-P-E, enter. Let's go with something a little bit more formidable, maybe, I don't know, 1.5 radius and a 1.5 radius. A little more formidable. And obviously from there, I could shape it a little bit. I can move it in a little bit, move it down, especially if it was just kind of whack, right, like that. Obviously, I wouldn't want to copy that over and over again and like keep it all messed up. You might want to even look up what kind of handrails, what do they look like? Do I want to make them square, circle? Obviously, circle ballisters are kind of weird, but then again, I chose like the weirdest profile in the world for my handrail, so clearly it's not going to work, right? But in my case, again, I don't have to sit there and make pipes all day long. I could take the exact same point because I already have these points. They already exist and they're already congruent and they're already ready to go. Voila, right? I may need to extend those or maybe even make them a little bit taller, but quite all right. Obviously, don't go with the large circle pipes or the really ridiculously crazy, right? I just show you the tools. Don't design what I design. Sometimes I'm just trying to push the technology so that you see that there is some more options there. But that's looking pretty good. I will say I don't want to take it over an hour, but I do want to get to some of the projection tools that we can do. So let's end it on there. So rails, stairs, option 2, option 3, and of course we had option 1, the easiest one. But from there, let's continue our steps. Let's see, make sure we didn't skip anything. Complete the run of stairs as needed. Let's kind of assume that we did that today. copy and continue the process until you reach a 60. By the way, that should be 50. Honestly, it doesn't really matter. I just want to give us a ballpark, that way nobody's making a skyscraper, but or too small, right? So next we need to copy and continue the process till the 60, and rails and pipe, and we essentially went over that already. So lastly, it says we need something. All right, we need a vertical circulation that reaches to the top deck. Check. Well, assuming that for today's tutorial. Must use both stairs and ramps. Check, right? Because I'm definitely D2 or above. And I'll need a total of 3 floor plans. Dang, that kind of sounds like a lot. How do I produce those? Something I mentioned yesterday was actually a clipping plane, right? So let's kind of assume that's finished and was, of course, all done. In fact, I think I actually do have one that is done, but we'll save it for a rainy day. Clipping plane is definitely my best friend. You type in clipping, usually it's the first thing that comes up. And essentially you want to make a plane on the ground, as if you were drawing a rectangle. So once you do that, you'll be like, oh crap, what have I done, right? A couple of options in both Rhino 7 and Rhino 8 is when you click on this clipping plane and you go over to your properties, you can accidentally see it only in one viewport, right? So kind of first by default, it's only going to be in your one viewport. In fact, you'll go to other places and you'll be like, why isn't it cutting anything? I thought I was making a floor plan. I thought I was cutting stuff, and you know, it seems to be cutting stuff in the perspective, but not anywhere else. Well, you need to make sure that the other views are enacted, and it actually will cut those. For instance, you'll see that it's starting to make a break line, and it's starting to draw all that information for us. Again, what a game changer, right? I could just print out Make 2Ds and trace them myself if I really had to be an analog. However, also a huge time saver if I'm just trying to make some floor plans to produce and show my studio professor. So there's floor plan 1. Sweet. Make 2D. And voila. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not going to do everything for me. I'm still going to need to draw a polyline and fake it till I make it and draw, you know, some sort of break line. Oh. And as you can see, if I draw outside of, what happens? Well, my clipping pane is accidentally clipping my line, and it looks as if I'm absolutely drawing nothing. So be cognizant of that, right? And also, once your clipping plane's gone, you do have to find it again in there. So just in case you're wondering, refer to this very part, right? Clipping plane can be kind of dangerous because you don't always see what's not there, right? So just keep that in mind. I've spent hours like, what am I doing, right? In that regard. What's nice also about the clipping plane is I can rotate it and I can make a section. Or maybe I want the other way. And I can get the section cut of that as well. Bam. I can take that section cut and make 2D and make a section. Now, obviously, I'm just asking for 3 floor plans, so not a big deal there. Really just trying to see what slices you want to take, right? And how you end up post-shading them is based on maybe what you've learned in Graphics 1 or Graphics 2. However, lastly, and I would say I'd end it on a good note, is Grasshopper. So let's get rid of our clipping plane. You can also hide a clipping plane, and it won't go away, by the way. So that's super dangerous, right? Because if I hide the clipping plane, it's like, how am I supposed to know where anything is? So definitely be careful about that. I've done that before as well, thinking that I was just hiding my object, but my clipping plane was in there. So again, save yourself some time and some stress. So I'm just gonna go ahead and delete that for this next part. But as you can see, we can definitely use it for studio, and we can produce some drawings, or you can accidentally shift them with Gumball like I just did. Make sure you select the right one. There we go. But yeah, already a floor plan and a section, just like that. Lastly, we want to make an axonometric for this. So you'll see that final drawing is actually 11 by 17, a 45 by 45 plan oblique drawing. So for most of us, if you haven't taken Graphics 1 or Graphics 2, this might be absolutely foreign and completely new to you. But essentially in architecture, we use a projection method called military projection or axonometric projection. Honestly, if you look up that word axonometric, I can't find it, to be absolutely honest with you. And this is actually true of a lot of architecture words, like architectonic. You know, You're not going to find these actually with a true definition unless they're actually defined by other architects. So don't get me wrong, we're starting to get into the realm of the weird and the architecture. But that being said, we're going to make a plan oblique drawing, and I've got a solution. In fact, we can do it all automatically. So just so that you know where to find it, we'll go to our Google Drive. In my case, I can't even click on it. What's going on here? Oh, my bad. There we go. We'll go to our Google Drive. We'll go over to Grasshopper. Young Grasshopper. Right. Double click. And we'll need this file, military projection. And I went ahead and posted the link where it comes from, just in case you want to read up on it and see how it works. But let's go ahead and download it for today. I'll put it on my desktop. Sweet. Let's go ahead and type in Grasshopper. It's going to bring up a little grasshopper. Remember when I said rhinoceros used to be a whole zoo? Right? I mean, they used to have flamingo, penguin, like all these different animals. Well, grasshopper and rhinoceros made it. I don't know why they stuck around. Kangaroo is in here as well. As you can see, kangaroo too. Again, I don't know why they chose all these animals, but I do find it hilariously cute and adorable, and a really great way to teach these programs. But I already have it loaded, so I'm going to select my military projection. And I went ahead and simplified this a little bit for us, but it's not mine. I will say this, of course, give credit where credit is due. It comes from the Virginia Tech program in the architecture department. So again, we use this all the time. And in my case, the way that it works is essentially we're going to load a geometry in here. This one, right? And it's going to turn it into an input. It's going to basically do a lot of fancy math, and it's going to make an output for us. Right? So most of us are probably even familiar with kind of these algorithm stuff, but this is kind of the algorithm interface, if you will, for Rhinoceros. To be fair, Blender has a different one, Revit has one called Dynamo, and they're all starting to get their own algorithm, but Rhinoceros was first. Just throwing it out there. Right? It always has been the first, and like I was talking to Nicole actually yesterday, it was originally invented to actually make jewelry. Right, so the 3D printers could make jewelry. Yes, we've had 3D printers actually since the 70s. So anyway, let's input our BREP. So you'll see that by default it's on the BREP. Again, I don't know who made this vocabulary sometimes, but this is essentially the BREP object that we want to include. So in my case, I'm going to make a copy, as you can see, because it's going to actually manipulate my model. So I'm going to actually make a copy and put it off into the distance. And we're going to go ahead and use this as our BREP. So I'm going to isolate that one. Pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and select all of it and right click on my BREP and set multiple BREPs. Obviously it's going to not turn orange. If it's orange, that means there's an error code somewhere. When it's gray like this, that means it's good. Right? So that's looking pretty good. However, nothing happened yet. You'll notice it's actually going to produce something in my 0, 0 point. So I might actually want to move this out of the way a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. Oh, there it is. You guys see that weird thing over there? It's because my C-plane is off. So maybe let's move my C-plane. Let's put it somewhere a little bit more affordable. Let's put it actually where we're working here. But you'll see that it really made a weird model, right? How weird is that? However, from the top view, let me ask you, what does it look like? A plan oblique drawing. In fact, there's a perfect 45, 45, and 90-degree situation going on there, right? You know what's even cooler? I could rotate it, and it's going to change it for me. How many times did you ever draw a plan oblique, right? And you had to start over, right? Every time that you wanted a different view. Now it's a game changer. Also, you don't have to share this with anybody, right? You'd be like, this is what I learned at SAC, right? But you could really dial it in, and we can get an exact piece. Now, once we're done, that's actually all done. These are all grayed out, that we know that there's no errors. I'll go to my output, and again, I have no idea who made this terminology, but we'll bake it. Again, it shows an egg, by the way. Bacon eggs, anyway. But we'll bake it, so right-click on that output, bake. And we'll basically set it to a certain layer. In my case, I'll just select stairs but we could, make our own model and things like that. But essentially, it's going to produce a model for us. So if I want to turn off the preview, I can. I basically click on that guy right there, or this guy right there. Both of those actually turn it off. Or you can unclick, sometimes the rendered view. But as you can see, we can minimize that for a second. And it's actually going to produce that weird, funky model. In fact, if you click on it, it's really all the same pieces, just been skewed and rotated in order to actually achieve, again, that projection. Now, again, it only works from the top. So if I take that piece, make 2D, my goodness, how much time did I save myself? Compared to Analog Studio, huh? And now it's perfectly accurate too. Oh, maybe my studio professor doesn't like that view. He actually, or she actually wanted to see the other side. No big deal. In fact, I'll just rotate this one the other way. Now, it may make the preview if I have, of course, preview on. So I'll go to Grasshopper. That'll come right back up. And again, I need to make sure that my preview is on, right? So again, making sure that's on. I can kind of see what it looks like. All right. I mean, how many times have you just wondered, what is it going to look like if I produce a shadow, or what does it look like from this view or this angle? And again, I can't tell you how much just this assignment alone could help you in Studio, right? So refer to exercise 4 to say the very least, right? I see a couple of light bulbs in the room, some bright eyes, right? Do you think you could potentially use this? Yeah, just a little bit, right? Definitely a game changer. But again, that's the military projection. Again, I would actually save this Grasshopper file when you don't have this class anymore, and you know we're 5 years from now, this very day, and you're like, man, what did we do 5 years ago today? Oh yeah, that military projection thing, right? You'll definitely use it again. I've even had some students go like, sir, do you have that file? I can't find the military projection anywhere. Yeah, of course. I don't change my Google Drive very often, so definitely download those. But essentially for the assignment, guys, what we're asking for is essentially to make some stairs. Again, within that same bounding box. A couple of views, floor plans, and at least one axonometric view. So very similar to this. I would say if you want to do the section axon, that's okay, but at least give us the regular axon too. Don't get me wrong, I'm only asking for a minimum of really just the 3 floor plans and the military projection. No like 3 iterations, it's just one. If you wanted to do more than one, or obviously, you know, experiment, you're more than welcome to. So, but yeah, I didn't want to scare anybody off like, oh crap, we got to do the clipping plane and it. Well, no, I just wanted to show you that those kinds of tools are available. However, as you guys can see, there's no class already on Thursday, and there is a working class day tomorrow. However, doing a week check tomorrow, not necessarily today. So really the rest of class today is to ask questions and get some answers. Obviously, we're going to be working on this one a bit, so really not due until next Wednesday. But that just gives you ample time to not only finish maybe exercise 3 a little bit, but also gives you a little bit more time for this one, as it's a little bit more practical. Any questions so far, guys?
Do you want them all connected, the stairs, or can we also do separate stairs?
You can do separate stairs, like floating stairs or stringers, kind of like those 3 options that we did today. I mean, you can change, obviously, the rails. You can get fancy with the balusters. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're kind of stringent on like, oh man, what should I do for stairs? Remember that example I gave you guys? One of my favorite stairs of all time. The world's most expensive stair, actually. You guys have got to have seen this building before, right?
I think so. Yeah.
It's basically a glass box in the middle of New York, and the Apple Store is underground. Well, they have this grand stair that basically goes down. Now, it's just showing me kind of the image. That's a lame stair. I want the good stair. There is actually 2 glass stairs in there. There it is. Look at that bad boy. Beautiful. And every single one of those parts are patented by Peter Boylan. Beautiful.
Why is it so expensive?
Because it's solid glass. That, and it has to support everybody's weight. I mean, but the whole reasoning was they wanted to get that light completely, maximize the amount of light and daylight that could come down into that lower ground surface. But it's definitely worth taking a look at. you know, don't get me wrong, these aren't the greatest pictures in the world. And to be fair, and unless you really know what I'm talking about, it's kind of hard to see just how beautiful it is. I got to go to New York, and I was the idiot kind of just sitting there like playing on the stairs, right? They're like, you know, there's a whole Apple store here, right? It's like, no, I'm just worried about the stair. But think about the curved glass that takes, the amount of cutting, the frosted is a little bit more expensive, and all of these wonderful parts that had to be basically machined or CNC'd to make that actually happen. It's not easy making a glass house. Let's put it that way. It's not exactly cheaper either, but it definitely has one heck of an effect when it comes to visiting this store, right? To say the very least. I don't know why I can't just get a big shot today. Usually you click on something that goes to, okay, I know why. There we go. Oh, no? Are you serious? There we go. That is absolutely lame, but as you can see, pretty interesting as a building. The fact that you can see the other buildings behind it, almost giving this kind of like a certain amount of presence without really being too loud, right? It really stands its own ground. Like, I don't know, I could think of another stair.
How much do you think you make that?
I'm pretty sure it was over $1 million just for that one stair alone, which is what made it the most expensive stair. So IMPay, Paris, another famous stair, and you could almost say a ripoff, not of Apple. Apple ripped off IMPay.
Pie.
Okay, I should have saw that coming. Right. Do you see where the idea came from? The Apple Store kind of ripped off IMPay. But this has a pretty wonderful stair, a glass stair that goes all the way down too. And the reason this was chose, guys, was, well, what better way to pay homage to literally a 3-story statue, by the way. I have no idea how they got it up there in 6 AD. But anyway, it's a story for another day. But if I wanted to give a transparency and pay homage, but I also wanted to make a strong statement, I'd make a grand pyramid, right? And I'd make sure that it was entirely out of glass and that the light could go down. In fact, there's an entire mall, substation, and metro station beneath the Louvre, right? Definitely worth your time if you're ever going to Paris, right? And if you're in architecture, by the time usually you're required to get your bachelor's degree to study abroad in architecture, right? So if you're going to UTSA, there is an option to stay here in San Antonio, but literally, please don't do that, guys. I thought the same thing. I thought I was way too poor to study abroad. I didn't see all the hype. But once you get there, you'll really start to understand the way society and other societies treat architecture, and it's not the way we treat it here. We treat it like garbage here, almost on like a 30 or 20-year cycle, whereas over there it's seen as art, quite frankly. So anyway, if you don't know what stairs to make, another good place to go is Pinterest. Type in architect or observation tower, right? All kinds of options. But stairs. You can't just type in stairs, huh? Architecture, studio maybe? Or studious. And we'll get some stairs. But more or less some ideas. Please don't do stuff like that. But more or less it's kind of what we're making, right? We're not reinventing the wheel here. But yeah, just in case you're low on ideas. In fact, I usually typically say when you're not inspired, read or search. When you are inspired, work. Simple as that. So all you'd have to really know is, are you inspired or not? Simple as that. Anyway, good questions. Anything else, guys? Fair enough? We'll end it there.